Saving 1,500 lives on the Titanic would actually doom millions more? You think preventing one of history's most famous disasters would be purely heroic, but the ripple effects of your intervention would reshape the 20th century in ways that would make you question whether some tragedies are meant to happen. Picture this. It's April 14th, 1912, and you've somehow traveled back in time with one mission: save the Titanic. Maybe you convince Captain Smith to slow down, or you ensure the radio warnings about ice fields are taken seriously, or you simply make sure there are enough lifeboats for everyone aboard. The ship reaches New York safely, passengers disembark, and you pat yourself on the back for preventing one of the most devastating maritime disasters in history. But here's where it gets interesting, because what happens next will fundamentally alter the course of human civilization in ways you never imagined. Let's start with the immediate consequences, the ones you'd expect and probably feel good about. 1,514 people who died in our timeline now live. Among them are some fascinating individuals whose extended lives would change history in small but significant ways. Benjamin Guggenheim, the mining magnate, continues his business empire. Isidore and Ida Strauss keep building Macy's into an even larger retail powerhouse. Thomas Andrews, the ship's designer, goes on to revolutionize naval architecture with his first-hand experience of what could have gone wrong. But here's what you didn't consider. The Titanic disaster wasn't just a tragedy, it was a catalyst for massive improvements in maritime safety. In our timeline, the sinking led to the creation of the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea in 1914. This treaty established 24-hour radio watches, sufficient lifeboats for all passengers, and international ice patrol services. Without the Titanic disaster, these safety measures are never implemented, or they're delayed by decades. The real problem isn't what you'd expect, though. It's what happens to World War I. You see, the Titanic sinking had a profound psychological impact on the public's perception of invincibility and progress. The disaster humbled an entire generation that believed technology could conquer nature. Without that humbling moment, the aristocratic confidence that helped stumble Europe into World War I remains unchecked. The war that killed 17 million people? In your timeline, it's even more devastating. But the butterfly effects go deeper than even this. J.P. Morgan was supposed to be on the Titanic, but canceled at the last minute due to business concerns. In our timeline, he died in 1913, just 1 year later. But what if the Titanic's safe arrival changes his schedule, his stress levels, his health decisions? Morgan lives longer in your timeline, continuing to consolidate American banking power. This delays the Federal Reserve Act, fundamentally altering how America finances not just World War I, but its entire 20th century expansion. This is where things get truly terrifying, because we're not just talking about different politicians or slightly altered business dealings. We're talking about completely different technological development paths. The Titanic disaster accelerated innovations in radio technology, metallurgy, and emergency response systems. Companies that profited from safety improvements in our timeline never get that boost in your new reality. The radio technology that saves countless ships and eventually enables global communication develops years later, affecting everything from military coordination to commercial aviation. The most disturbing possibility is what happens to the passengers themselves. Many Titanic survivors became advocates for maritime safety, women's rights, and social reform. Margaret Brown, the unsinkable Molly Brown, dedicated her post-Titanic life to charity work and women's suffrage. Without her near-death experience, does she become the activist who helps American women get the vote? Violet Jessup, who survived both the Titanic and Britannic sinkings, became a maritime safety expert. In your timeline, where she never faces that first disaster, her expertise never develops, potentially leading to even deadlier accidents later. Here's where the paradox becomes truly mind-bending. The families of Titanic victims in our timeline often struggled financially, leading to important labor reforms and social safety nets. The White Star Line faced massive lawsuits that established legal precedents for corporate responsibility. Without these precedents, industrial accidents throughout the early 20th century kill far more workers. You saved 1,500 people on one ship but doomed thousands more in factories, mines, and other vessels. But wait, there's more. The Titanic's wreck site became one of the most studied underwater locations in history, advancing deep-sea exploration technology that eventually leads to discoveries of hydrothermal vents, new species, and underwater mineral deposits. The technology developed to explore the Titanic wreck directly contributes to innovations in submarine warfare, underwater rescue operations, and eventually space exploration technology. By preventing the sinking, you delay these technological advances by decades. What happened next will blow your mind. The cultural impact of the Titanic disaster shaped an entire century of storytelling, art, and human psychology. The sinking became a metaphor for hubris, a reminder that human achievement must be tempered with humility. Without this cultural touchstone, the Roaring Twenties become even more reckless. The stock market bubble of the late 20s grows larger, and the eventual crash of 1929 is catastrophically worse, leading to a global depression that lasts not 10 years but 20. Consider the technological implications more deeply. The Titanic's SOS calls were among the first to use the new wireless technology extensively. The disaster proved the life-saving potential of radio communication, leading to massive investments in wireless infrastructure. In your timeline, this investment is delayed, slowing the development of global communications by years. This affects everything from international diplomacy to the coordination of humanitarian aid during natural disasters. The ripple effects extend to naval architecture across all nations. Every major shipping line redesigns their vessels after studying what went wrong with the Titanic. Without that real-world test case, ship designs remain fundamentally flawed for years longer. More disasters occur, but they're spread out over time and don't generate the same public outcry for systematic reform. Instead of one highly publicized disaster leading to comprehensive safety improvements, you get dozens of smaller disasters with fewer safety improvements each time. Here's the darkest timeline scenario. Without the Titanic disaster serving as a wake-up call about the dangers of overconfidence, World War I starts earlier, and with even less preparation for the realities of modern warfare. The generals who learned caution from studying disasters like the Titanic never learn those lessons. The war begins with even more naive expectations about quick victory and acceptable casualties. Instead of ending in 1918, it drags on until 1920 or beyond, killing not 17 million but 25 million people. The economic consequences cascade through generations. The Titanic disaster led to significant changes in insurance practices, risk assessment, and corporate liability. These changes made business more cautious but also more sustainable. In your timeline, without these lessons, businesses continue operating with 19th century risk models well into the 20th century. When the inevitable reckonings come, they're more severe and widespread. Even the survivors' stories matter more than you might think. The testimonies from Titanic survivors shaped public understanding of class inequality, heroism under pressure, and the importance of following safety protocols. These stories influenced literature, film, and social movements throughout the 20th century. Remove those stories, and you remove important cultural touchstones that helped society process concepts of sacrifice, social responsibility, and human dignity under extreme conditions. So here's the ultimate question that should keep you awake at night. If you could travel back in time and prevent any historical disaster, should you? The Titanic seems like an obvious choice, 1,500 innocent lives lost due to human arrogance and poor planning. But what if those 1,500 deaths prevented 50,000 others? What if that one night of tragedy taught lessons that saved millions of lives over the following century? This is the paradox at the heart of all time travel scenarios involving disasters. Every tragedy, no matter how senseless it seems, becomes woven into the fabric of history in ways we can never fully predict or understand. The lessons learned, the safety measures implemented, the cultural changes that follow, they all combine to shape a future that might be better than any alternative we could create through intervention. The most chilling realization is that by the time you understand the full consequences of preventing the Titanic disaster, it's too late to undo your intervention. You're trapped in a timeline where your act of mercy has led to greater suffering, where your attempt to preserve life has ultimately cost more lives than it saved. You have to live with the knowledge that sometimes, the most heroic thing you can do is let history unfold as it was meant to, no matter how much it hurts to stand by and watch. What historical disaster do you think would have the most unexpected consequences if prevented? Let me know in the comments, because the butterfly effect is always more complex than we imagine, and your seemingly obvious choice might be hiding the most terrifying alternative timeline of all.